Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I'm Nobodium. This is more of me reading Markiplier from North Korea. Last time we got through the chapter where he was born and some of his early years. And now we're going to be reading chapter 10 and 11. Relocating from Hawaii. In the spring of 1991, after Cliff retired from 25 years of military service, we relocated to Cincinnati, to a small college town of Oxford, Ohio, close to Miami University where Cliff's parents lived. When we arrived and met my father-in-law again, I was instantly saddened by Dr. Fishbach's dramatically changed appearance. He had once been charismatic and handsome, but now he was nothing but skin and bones. Also, he was totally bedridden. Worst of all, he lost his will to live and had refused to eat for quite some time. Later, Cliff told me that his father had also been stationed in Korea during the Korean War. As a doctor, his dad had helped thousands of wounded soldiers. Over the past years, after being diagnosed with Parkinson's, his health deteriorated steadily after falling down the steps and breaking his hip. Although he was mentally still alert, I felt that he was determined to end his miserable life. There was not much we could do except reposition and change him often. Although Dr. Fishbach never talked or opened his eyes frequently, I provided him comfort by sitting quietly next to him and holding his hand. Sadly, Dr. Fishbach passed away his sleep in the middle of the night exactly 1 month after we had moved in. The night before Dr. Fishbach's funeral, he appeared in my dream. He looked much younger, wearing his usual professional suit as he stood at the door. He refused to enter the room, but smiled warmly and waved goodbye before I awoke from my dream. It had been so comforting for me to see him since I lost my opportunity to attend Dr. Fishbach's funeral, A day before his funeral, we drove 6 hours to Paducah, Kentucky, the hometown of his family, where they planned to bury him in the family lot. Before we arrived in Paducah, Cliff had hired a new babysitter to take care of our boys at his mother's house. Cliff, his mother, and I agreed to stay in a hotel in Paducah with the rest of the family. After sitting together in the hotel for a while, my mother-in-law said that she was concerned that the new babysitter might steal some of her precious things from around her house. She told me to return to her home to watch my children and to cancel the babysitter. The way she treated me upset me tremendously. However, I knew that I had no choice but to obey her. At the time, I was unaware that Dr. Fishbach's death had opened a new door. Cliff's mother started to minimize me as often as possible. It was just the beginning of our awkward and uncomfortable relationship during our stay at her place. The situation became much worse when Cliff took a new job in San Diego with a 1-year contract. He had decided to take the position because it offered him an opportunity in a new field of computer programming and the internet. When his mom lost her husband before Cliff left for California, Cliff had hired a full-time live-in helper for his mother. I volunteered to stay with his mother. However, unfortunately, the situation became so unbearable for me that I had to leave. I started taking courses in calculus and biology from Miami University when I first arrived in Oxford, Ohio. After I successfully completed my 2 classes at the end of 1991, I decided to join my husband in San Diego. Our boys and I missed Cliff, and we longed to see him. Determined, I gathered all our belongings and tightly held my 2 boys' hands. I gladly paid the $300 to hire a taxi to take us to CBG Airport and fly to California. Cliff picked us up at the airport and took us to his apartment. I quickly realized that the place Cliff was staying at was not suitable for all of us. He had rented a very small studio for a 1-year contract. Knowing that my family in South Korea would be excited to see my boys for the first time in spring of 1982, I decided to pack again and take our boys to visit our Korean family. During our flight from LAX to Korea, I had another Markiplier moment. When I returned from the bathroom on the airplane, Mark was missing. I was frantic until Thomas told me that his brother had been taken by a pretty Korean woman wearing a uniform. Not knowing where to find Mark, I started walking down the aisle in a few times. I finally located my mark, grinning and happily sitting right next to a young, pretty Korean Airlines attendant. I always fly Korean Airline. She was giving Mark a special treat in sharing a first class meal with him as they sat in the corner of the room where they store food and trays. There's a picture of Mark and Thomas in a bathtub, being cute little babies. Get away. I love you, Vivian, but you need to calm down. When I returned to my home in Korea, I hardly recognized my two younger sisters. During the 7 years that I had been away from Korea, they had grown into teenagers. My two older sisters had married and now had their own children. My dad loved bonding with my boys, especially Mark. My dad even complimented me, saying that Mark behaved like an older gentleman. My second oldest sister, Meowing Okay, had a son, Hying Bae, who was 1 year older than Mark. One day, Mark and Hying Bae were under the care of my sister's husband, Sung Kwang, where we went to the market. When she returned home, Sung Kwang couldn't wait to tell me about another Markiplier moment. While he gave both boys a bubble bath in the tub, Sung Kwang provoked them to fight with each other by slapping each other hard on the cheek. Obeying his father, 2 year old Hung Bae slapped my 3 year old Mark as hard as he could. But when it was Mark's turn to slap Hyung Bae, Mark would simply refuse to do so, even though Mark was taller, stronger, Bill than his cousin. Eventually, that silly game had to end. Sung Kwang was so impressed by my son's action, he chuckled while he was telling me the story. Still, I made sure to give a disapproving look to my brother-in-law. Why would you tell kids to smack each other? It's not amusing. Chapter 11, Returning to Cincinnati. By the end of 1992, we all flown back to San Diego to join Cliff. We managed to pack everything we owed in his old Honda, and then we drove all the way to Cincinnati. While we stayed in a weekly hotel, we found a 2-bedroom apartment in Cincinnati and moved in. We had to eat using a box as our kitchen table. I was 28 years old and the mother of 2 small boys. Cliff was 50 years old, retired and working. I wanted to work to support my family, but my opportunities seemed slim. I started feeling restless. By chance, I met a woman in our apartment complex who was working as an LPN, a licensed practical nurse. Nearby, in a long-term care facility, her name was Sue, and she told me that she used to work as an RN in Korea. Due to her language barrier, Sue had a difficult time passing the nursing board examination. Also, I learned from Sue that at the time, only 5% of Asian nurses were working as RNs in the US. At the time, I was not aware that being an RN was regarded as a well-paid and highly respected career. After listening to Sue, I knew that if I studied hard, I would be more than capable of getting sufficient grades and work in school and passing the nursing board exams. The following week, I applied to the associate degree nursing program at the branch of Miami University, Hamilton campus. While I was working to be accepted into the nursing program, I took the necessary prerequisite courses. Finally, I received my acceptance letter in the summer of 1993 during my nursing. I could honestly say that I had never studied so hard in my life. Not only did I have a language barrier, but I also began to notice medical and cultural barriers that would be difficult for me to overcome. I knew that these hurdles would be difficult. However, I lost my belief in myself. I never lost my belief in myself. If I did not understand the material, I read and reread entire chapters until I memorized all the information and became cemented in my memory cells of my brain. I worked as a nurse aside of every weekend as a nursing home near my home to pay for my college expenses. Finally, when I graduated in May of 1995, I was awarded the precious Nightingale Award, which was given to only one person in the entire class. Well, congrats! After passing all my examinations, I earned my registered nurse license. All right. That's all we're going to do today. What did we... I might be forgetting already. Jesus. We read. Oh yeah, they went to Korea. That's cool that he got Mark and Thomas got to see their other family across, uh, over in Korea. I was kind of like, were they ever gonna go back? I know Mark does later in his life, because remember he did vlogs in Korea, but wasn't sure if they went as kids. But that's cool. They went for 1 year, came back to be with their family. It proves that her and her husband Ben had a really strong relationship and a good bond. But yeah, and then I'm glad she showed strong will to get through the college for her kids. But yeah, if you like this video, bomb the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the next one. Alright, hope you have a fantastic day, and bye-bye!